Hi, I'm Karen. We're here at Montavilla Sewing Center, and today we're going to talk about the Bernette b38. This machine is also similar to many Janome models, so the direct select stitches may be a little bit different, but the operations are basically the same. So let's get to know this machine. First of all, over here we have where you plug in your machine, we have where you plug in your foot control, and here's the on-off switch. Up here is the hand wheel. Here's the bobbin winder spindle and the stopper for winding bobbins. Over here we have the spool pin, and it has a little spool cap on that to keep the spool firmly on there. Here we have a handle for lifting your machine. Over here we have a thread guide for winding your bobbin. You can see it's on a bit of a spring there. Around here is a thread guide for threading your machine. Over here is the presser foot pressure, and that's how tightly this pushes down against your fabric. Most of the time we just leave it right here on 6. This is the take-up lever, and it moves up and down as the stitches are forming. Here we have the tension dial for the thread to determine how tightly it's pulling on the thread as it's sewing. Most of the time we want to leave it right there on 4, between 3 and 5 is the normal range. Over here on the side we have a thread cutter, so when you're done sewing, take your fabric out of there, you can just pull your thread over the top and it cuts it right off. Really nice. Here we have, of course, the needle and the needle bar and the little screw that holds the needle into the needle clamp. There is a threading guide here. There's also a threading guide under there, and we'll get into threading on a future video. Here we have the foot holder and the foot. Now on the back of the foot holder, there's a little lever you push like that. The foot drops right off, and you can quickly change this to other feet. So right now we're going to put this down. That's how you put that back on. Then we have the needle plate and the bobbin area. The little cover for the bobbin comes off like that. You can take your bobbin out, and when you've got a bobbin full, you can put that right back in there, thread it the correct way, and we'll get into that too later, and put this back on. The needle plate has a lot of lines on it. The lines are for guiding the edge of your fabric so you can sew a nice, even, straight seam allowance. Then we have the accessory tray here. And the accessory tray, the whole thing can come off like this. So now you have the free arm. The free arm is really nice for sewing pant legs and jeans. If you want to hem your jeans, you can put that pant leg right around there and stitch it in a circle right around it. And also on the back here is a switch, and I'm going to show you that. That switch, if you put this down like that, it lowers the feed dogs. So this way, this is good for if you're going to do free motion quilting, and some of you know what that is. You would lower your feed dogs, and now the movement of the sewing is based on how you move your hands. So to put the feed dogs back up, we just push the switch the other way. We take a single stitch, and they come right back up. Let me put this back on. Over here, we have the presser foot lifter. That's this little lever that I'm lifting, and you can push it up a little bit higher if you have some really thick, like fleece or something lofty that you need to get under there. Here we have the needle threader. It's a really nice feature to this machine, makes threading your sewing machine needle really easy. Behind that we have the buttonhole lever. And both of these store up inside the machine when you're not using them. Now for doing buttonholes, that's also going to be on a future video. Over here, we have the start and stop button. Now this is for starting your machine or stopping it if you don't have the foot control connected. Right up here in the screen, you can see we have that foot control connected, so it's not going to work as long as it's connected. Up here, right up above it, we have the reverse button. So if you push that down at the end of your seam, as long as you have it pressed, held pressed, it will sew in reverse, and you lift it back up. So you do like 3 or 4 stitches at the beginning and the end of your seam to keep that seam from coming unstitched. This one is the locking stitch button. It works similarly to this, but you just press it once, keep your foot down on the pedal, and it will stitch in place. The feed dogs moved just a little bit, so it kind of ties a knot in the stitches. It's a really great way to finish a seam if you don't want to have the bulkiness or the visibility of a back stitch there. This is the needle up, needle down. So if you push this button, the needle goes down, push it again, the needle comes up. Here we have a thread cutter. Now what this does is that the end of your sewing, you've got your fabric still under there, but you want to cut your thread, you can just push this button and it cuts the thread and pulls the thread tails, they're about 1/2 inch long, to the back of your sewing. Here is your twin needle button. Now you would push this if you were going to use a twin needle. It's a special needle and you can't use your needle threader with that. It's 2 needles here. But what this will do is limit the width of some of your decorative stitches and your zigzags so that you don't sew it too wide. So it's either on or off. So when I have it on and I'm going to turn it off, what it does is it gives me a little warning to make sure that I switch it back to the single needle. That's why it does that there. So this is your speed slider. What this does is it governs how fast you can sew. So if you're trying to sew something very precisely and you need a lot of control, you might want to put this down to a lower speed. I like this for free motion quilting because that way I can keep my foot on the pedal all the way down and it just goes at a single kind of plodding pace. But for normal sewing, I have it all the way up to the top. Now, if you're just getting used to sewing in general, I would keep it in the middle until you get a little bit better at sewing. Over here, we have the operations panel. Now, when you first turn on your machine, it's going to be right here at stitch number 1, which is straight stitch, center needle position, and a most common garment sewing stitch length. If you'd like to look at all the stitch options that your machine has, under here we have a little drawer that opens up like this. You can take out your stitch option guide, the little booklet. Now up here we have direct select, which just means these stitches up here, the picture that you see is a stitch that you get when you push that number. So your little guide starts with mode 2. So you push the button there, mode 2. Now that means every stitch that you type in, every number you type in is going to give you that stitch. So if, say for instance, we wanted the round end buttonhole, we would push 24 and there we go. To get back to straight stitching, if you're in mode 2, you just push 0, 1 and that gets you back into straight stitching. For going to mode 2, you go, or mode 3, we go to 3. And over here we have lots of decorative stitches, plus some utility stitches, like this would be for doing applique and so forth like that. And then mode 4 is your alphabet letters. The alphabet letters also have a few little cute symbols down here and some spaces, so you could have a word with a space in between, and your punctuation, uppercase and lowercase. Mode 5 is your European letters. Mode 6 is your Cyrillic or your Russian letters there. So back to mode 1 like that. For straight stitching, you can always move your needle over to one side or the other. That would be right here. Now I'm going to have you look right over here. Watch how the needle goes over to the right, over to the left, depending on where I have put my stitch width selector, or in this case stitch position selector. You can also increase the length of your stitch. So you can step it up like this, or you can even just press and hold. And that's going to give you a nice long basting stitch, but it's off to the side a little bit. Well, let's say we wanted to get it right back to default. You don't have to change these. All you need to do is just reselect that one stitch and it'll put it right back to default. The clear button is if you're doing a series of like letters or something and you want to, say, change a letter or clear out a particular stitch, you would clear that. The turnover key, which is really an interesting thing, let's say you wanted to have a line of hearts along the edge of something, but you don't want them upside down, you want them this way, or you want whatever pattern, you can turn it over with this. Memory, again, is for that sequence of stitches, so if you had letters that you wanted to spell out, you would put memory after each letter, and that way you would have a sequence of stitches. So this is the basic overview of this machine. We have other videos you can watch, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give us a thumbs up. If you have questions or comments, you can leave them in the box below. Thank you for watching. See you later. Bye.